A narrow fragment of ancient parchment rests beneath protective glass, its surface darkened to the color of old honey, its edges broken and uneven where centuries of handling have worn the material thin. The fibers can still be seen beneath the faded ink, and several lines remain visible despite the damage, describing the dead, separated spirits, heavenly places, and a judgment that has not yet arrived. There is nothing dramatic about the object itself. No golden seal, no hidden inscription glowing beneath the surface. Just fragile material carrying words that survived when entire kingdoms, languages, and generations disappeared. The Book of Enoch occupies an unusual position in ancient religious history because it survived while remaining outside the standard biblical canon of most Jewish and Christian traditions. By the 4th century, church authorities were already establishing boundaries around which writings could be read as authoritative scripture. In 367, Athanasius of Alexandria listed the books recognized for church reading, and Enoch was not included among them. That decision did not destroy the text. It changed the path through which the text would survive. Copies continued to circulate in different communities, and centuries later, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran revealed something that permanently changed the historical picture. Aramaic fragments of Enochic writings were found among the scrolls, demonstrating that major portions of the tradition existed in the Second Temple period, long before the surviving medieval Ethiopic manuscripts were copied. This was not a minor discovery. It meant that Enoch belonged to an ancient Jewish literary environment, and that its descriptions of angels, judgment, hidden places, and the fate of the dead were already circulating centuries before the Christian era. And within those ancient passages is a detail that becomes especially important when we examine what happens to souls after death. The text does not present every dead person as immediately entering one identical final destination. Instead, it describes separation. It describes different conditions for different groups of spirits. It describes places where the dead remain while waiting for a future judgment. That sequence changes the way the entire passage should be understood. Death comes first. Separation follows. Judgment comes later. The souls are not simply erased from existence, and they are not presented as forgotten by the divine order. Their condition continues beyond the moment when the physical body disappears. The central claim is therefore more precise than the idea that certain souls simply escape judgment. The Book of Enoch describes souls that are separated and held in an intermediate condition before the final judgment occurs. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the ancient passages actually say about these separated souls, why the text describes different conditions among the dead, and how the discovery of ancient manuscripts confirmed that these ideas belong to a much older tradition than many people realize. If forgotten scripture and ancient mysteries fascinate you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what was removed from scripture, history, and records. But here's what makes this stranger. The most important evidence is not found in a modern theory. It is found in the ancient text itself. The most important evidence begins with the description of the dead themselves. In 1 Enoch 22, Enoch is shown a place associated with the spirits of those who have died, and the description is unusually structured for an ancient account of the unseen world. The dead are not presented as one undivided group waiting in one identical condition. They are separated. Different sections are described, and the condition of each group is connected with circumstances surrounding their lives and deaths. One group is associated with righteous people who suffered. Another is connected with those who committed wrongdoing. The passage describes these spirits as remaining in distinct places while awaiting a future moment of judgment. That detail matters because it establishes a sequence that is easy to miss when the passage is reduced to a simple description of the afterlife. Death comes first. Separation follows. Final judgment comes later. The ancient writer does not treat those moments as one event. The dead have already entered a particular condition, but the final verdict has not yet been completed. This means that the place or condition where a soul remains after death is not necessarily identical to its final destiny. That distinction is central to understanding the mysterious claim surrounding Enoch. Many modern summaries treat ancient descriptions of death as though every soul immediately reaches its final destination, but Enoch presents something more complicated. The text describes an intermediate state in which the dead are already known, separated, and assigned a condition while waiting for what comes later. The passage is not simply about where people go. It is about the order in which divine justice unfolds. A person could die without receiving justice during earthly life. A victim could disappear without seeing the person responsible punished. A powerful ruler could die before being held accountable. Yet the Enochic description insists that death does not erase the record of human actions. The dead remain part of a larger system of divine knowledge. Their deeds continue to matter. Their conditions are not identical, and the future judgment remains ahead. This is where the phrase, "certain souls never even reach judgment," must be understood carefully. The text does not clearly teach that particular human souls permanently escape divine judgment. Instead, it describes souls that do not immediately enter the final judgment because they remain separated in an intermediate condition. Their final fate is still connected to the judgment that comes later. The mystery is therefore not an escape from judgment. The mystery is the waiting period before judgment. What happens during that period? Why are some spirits separated from others? What determines their condition? And why does the text describe specific places rather than simply saying that the dead wait somewhere beyond human sight? These questions arise directly from the ancient passage. Enoch presents the unseen world as organized rather than chaotic. The dead are not wandering without purpose. They are separated according to a divine order that the living cannot normally observe. The physical body disappears, but the record of the person does not disappear with it. The ancient writer is therefore describing a universe in which death is not the end of accountability. It is another stage in a larger process. The soul passes beyond ordinary human observation, enters a particular condition, and waits for the appointed judgment. And once that distinction is understood, the next sections of Enoch become much easier to follow. The next detail becomes clearer when Enoch moves from the separated spirits toward the future judgment itself. The text does not describe judgment as something that happens immediately at the instant of death. Instead, the passages create a sequence in which the dead enter a particular condition first, while a later moment remains appointed for judgment, revelation, and final separation. This distinction is one of the most important features of the Enochic material because it means that death and final judgment are not necessarily presented as the same event. In 1 Enoch 38, the attention turns toward the righteous and the wicked and toward a future moment when the difference between them becomes impossible to hide. The righteous are associated with a coming revelation, while those who have acted unjustly face consequences that cannot be avoided by wealth, authority, or earthly power. Human beings may conceal actions from one another, but the Enochic record treats hidden actions as temporary. They remain known within the heavenly order. The same pattern appears when Enoch encounters the figure described as the chosen one or son of man. In 1 Enoch 46, this figure is connected with righteousness, judgment, and the exposure of those who have acted against divine order. The passage presents judgment as something that will eventually reach even those who appeared untouchable during their earthly lives. That becomes especially significant when placed beside the earlier description of the dead. The spirits have already been separated, but the final judgment remains ahead. They are waiting for an appointed stage in a larger process. This means the intermediate condition is not meaningless. It is part of the structure. The righteous are identified. The wicked are recognized. The suffering of the innocent is remembered. The actions of the powerful are recorded. And the final judgment will reveal what human courts could never fully establish. Enoch repeatedly presents this future judgment as an unveiling. Secrets become visible. Hidden deeds are exposed. The distinction between appearance and reality disappears. This theme also appears in the sections dealing with rebellious heavenly beings. Their actions may have remained beyond ordinary human understanding, but their deeds were not hidden from the divine realm. The same principle applies to human beings. A person may die and disappear from the visible world, but death does not erase the record. That is why the separated souls in 1 Enoch 22 should not be interpreted as souls that have simply escaped judgment. They are souls whose condition has already been determined for an intermediate period, while the ultimate judgment remains future. This creates a three-part structure: what happened during life, what happens after death, and what happens when final judgment arrives. The first stage belongs to human existence. The second belongs to the unseen condition of the dead. The third belongs to the final revelation and judgment. Once this sequence is recognized, the strange language becomes more coherent. Enoch is not saying that justice has failed because someone died. He is saying that justice continues beyond death. A victim who never received recognition is not forgotten. A person who escaped earthly punishment is not permanently protected. A hidden action remains recorded. The dead therefore occupy a strange position. They are already separated, but the final verdict is still ahead. This is what makes the ancient description so unusual. It presents death not as the end of judgment, but as a passage into a condition where judgment is still waiting. And that leads to the next question. If the text was this specific about the fate of souls, why was Enoch eventually placed outside the standard biblical canon used by most Christian traditions? The fate of the document becomes almost as important as the fate of the souls it describes. For centuries, Enoch remained outside the standard biblical collection used by most Jewish and Christian traditions, yet the text did not disappear. It survived through separate manuscript traditions, translations, fragments, and communities that continued to value its contents. The surviving evidence shows that this was not a simple case of one authority destroying every copy. Instead, the history was more complicated. Different communities made different decisions about which writings should be treated as scripture, which should be read for instruction, and which should remain outside the formal canon. By the 4th century, Christian leaders were increasingly defining those boundaries. In 367, Athanasius of Alexandria listed the books he regarded as authoritative for church use, and Enoch was not included. Later Christian traditions developed their own canonical boundaries. The result was that Enoch became excluded from the standard biblical collection of most churches while continuing to survive elsewhere. The Ethiopian Christian tradition preserved one Enoch in its biblical collection, allowing a complete Ethiopic manuscript tradition to continue when the work had become difficult to access in many other regions. That survival becomes especially important when considered alongside the discoveries at Qumran. Before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, many modern readers knew Enoch primarily through later Ethiopic manuscripts and scattered Greek evidence. The Qumran discoveries changed that situation. Aramaic fragments demonstrated that Enochic writings were already circulating in the Second Temple period. The evidence pushed the textual history far deeper into antiquity and showed that the ideas concerning angels, judgment, hidden places, and the fate of the dead belonged to an ancient Jewish environment. This also explains why the claim of total suppression is too simple. If Enoch had been completely destroyed, there would be no ancient fragments, no Greek witnesses, and no complete Ethiopic tradition. The document survived because different communities preserved different pieces of it. What disappeared was not necessarily the text itself, but its position of authority in many religious traditions. That distinction matters. A book can be known without being accepted as scripture. It can be copied without being placed beside the canonical books. It can influence religious thought while remaining outside the official collection. Enoch followed exactly this unusual path. Its descriptions of separated souls therefore survived even while many readers lost access to the broader textual context surrounding them. And when that context is restored, the description becomes more precise. The separated spirits in 1 Enoch 22 are part of a larger system of divine justice. Their condition follows death but precedes the final judgment. Their circumstances are distinguished rather than treated as identical. The righteous and wicked are not placed into one undifferentiated category. The dead remain connected to a future judgment in which hidden actions are revealed and final consequences are established. This is why the manuscript history and the theological description belong together. The same text that describes hidden places for the dead was itself preserved through hidden and scattered channels for centuries. Fragments survived in desert caves. Later copies survived in another language. Communities preserved what other communities rejected. Scholars eventually compared the surviving witnesses and reconstructed the older tradition. The parchment therefore becomes more than an ancient object. It represents a chain of preservation. And once that chain is understood, the next question becomes unavoidable. What exactly happens to these souls during the period between death and final judgment? The question of what happens between death and final judgment brings us back to the most unusual part of the Enochic description. The text does not treat the period after death as an empty interval. The spirits are separated, their conditions are described, and their future remains connected to a judgment that has not yet occurred. This means the ancient writer is presenting an intermediate state rather than immediately collapsing death and final destiny into one event. That distinction becomes especially important when different passages are read together. In 1 Enoch 22, Enoch sees separated places for the spirits of the dead. In later sections, the text describes a future judgment in which righteousness is revealed and wrongdoing is exposed. The two descriptions belong together. The first explains the condition of the dead before the final reckoning. The second describes what happens when that reckoning arrives. This is the detail that simplified explanations often miss. The text does not clearly say that certain souls permanently escape judgment. Instead, it presents them as waiting outside the ordinary human world while the final judgment remains ahead. Their separation is therefore not necessarily the final verdict. It is an earlier stage. That makes the phrase, "never reach judgment," more complicated than it first appears. A soul may not stand before judgment immediately after death, but that does not mean divine judgment has been avoided. The ancient framework allows for a period in which the dead remain separated according to their condition before the appointed judgment takes place. This idea also explains why Enoch repeatedly emphasizes hidden knowledge. Human beings cannot normally see where the dead are. They cannot inspect the places described to Enoch. They cannot determine the ultimate condition of another person's soul. Yet the text presents these things as already known within the heavenly order. The invisible realm operates according to rules that remain outside ordinary observation. Modern archaeology cannot physically confirm those places, and no scientific experiment has demonstrated that souls occupy hidden compartments after death. That distinction must remain clear. What archaeology has confirmed is the antiquity of the textual tradition. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain Enochic fragments that demonstrate the existence of this literature in the Second Temple period. That evidence does not prove the supernatural claims contained in the text, but it does establish that ancient communities were already discussing these ideas long before the medieval manuscripts that preserved the complete Ethiopic form. The evidence therefore operates on two different levels. Manuscripts establish what ancient people wrote and when the tradition existed. Theology interprets what those writings mean. Those two questions should not be confused. Yet the historical evidence makes the passage more significant because it shows that the concept of separated souls awaiting judgment was not a recent invention. It belonged to an ancient religious world in which death, resurrection, angels, punishment, and final judgment were connected parts of a larger system. Enoch preserves that system in unusually detailed form. The dead are not presented as forgotten. Their deeds are not erased. Their conditions are distinguished. Their future remains open until the final judgment. And this creates the central tension of the entire passage. From the perspective of the living, a person disappears at death. From the perspective of Enoch, the disappearance is only from the visible world. The soul continues within an unseen order, waiting for what has been appointed. That is why the ancient description remains so compelling. It does not claim that justice ends when life ends. It claims the opposite. Death may hide a person from human eyes, but it does not hide that person from the judgment still to come. The final piece is the history of what happened to Enoch and what its description of the dead ultimately means. The text was not destroyed completely. It was excluded from the biblical canon of most Christian traditions, preserved within the Ethiopian tradition, copied in different languages, and eventually brought back into modern scholarship through manuscript discoveries. That complicated history matters because it prevents the simplest explanation from becoming the only explanation. Enoch was not universally erased. It was preserved differently. Some communities rejected it as scripture. Others continued to read it. Ancient fragments survived in the Judean desert, Greek witnesses survived in scattered form, and Ethiopic manuscripts preserved the most complete version. When scholars compared these different witnesses, they discovered that the Enochic tradition reached deep into the Second Temple period. The Dead Sea Scrolls therefore provided historical confirmation that major portions of this literature were already circulating long before Christianity became established. But the age of the text does not automatically prove every supernatural claim it contains. It establishes something more precise. Ancient people were already preserving detailed descriptions of angels, judgment, resurrection, separated spirits, and the fate of the dead. The central question can now be answered more carefully. Why do certain souls appear to never reach judgment? According to the Enochic framework, they do not necessarily escape judgment at all. They enter an intermediate condition in which they are separated while waiting for the final judgment. The wording becomes clearer when the sequence is kept intact. First comes earthly life, then comes death, then comes separation, then comes waiting. Finally comes the appointed judgment. The mystery is therefore not that some souls have discovered a secret passage around divine justice. The mystery is that the ancient text describes a stage between death and the final verdict that is normally invisible to the living. That changes the meaning of the entire passage. A person who died without receiving justice is not forgotten. A person who committed evil and escaped earthly punishment is not permanently beyond accountability. A righteous person who suffered is not lost from the record. The final judgment remains ahead. What we have to confront is the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. If the Qumran fragments prove that Enochic writings existed in the Second Temple period, then the tradition is genuinely ancient. If 1 Enoch 22 describes distinct conditions for the spirits of the dead, then the text presents an intermediate state rather than one immediate final destination. If later sections describe a future resurrection and judgment, then the ancient writer clearly distinguishes the condition after death from the final outcome. And if different religious traditions preserved or rejected Enoch according to their own canonical boundaries, then its absence from most Bibles does not require a universal secret destruction. The evidence leads to something more restrained and more interesting. Enoch preserves an ancient system in which death does not end accountability. The souls remain separated. The righteous are distinguished. The wicked remain known. The final judgment waits, and the hidden record eventually becomes visible. Return now to the fragment beneath the glass. Its edges are still broken. Its fibers are still darkened. The ink remains faint, but the words continue to survive. Centuries have passed since the first Enochic passages were written. Empires have fallen. Languages have changed. Manuscripts have been copied and translated. Religious boundaries have shifted, yet the description remains. The dead are not forgotten. They are separated. They wait. And according to the ancient text, the final judgment has not been avoided. It has simply not yet arrived.